Hello and welcome to the MLB DFS Podcast. My name is Joshua Riemer. I'm joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Jared Block. Jared, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, I am. I'm back. I'm in front of the camera now. Finally, still don't feel the best, but we've been smoking, man. And I know we haven't necessarily talked on podcasts together recently because it feels like we're going solo and doing that. But we're definitely locked into the season, and we're really starting to find that the recency of the MLB season's definitely been on our favor, and we've made a lot of really insane calls, and not only I guess like we should just take a moment to say how hot things have been. 6 of the last 7 DFS slates we've been victorious in. We had a player over the weekend scored 95 FanDuel points, and Adolis Garcia. Last night the chalk went 30%, 60% plus on Blake Snell. Highlighted it on the audio only podcast and saying that was one of the worst takes of the year in terms of where the field was at versus where I felt like we were in going Charlie Morton. And it's been those kind of calls are going to carry us for the DFS season this year.
Yeah, man. Getting different than the chalk has always been a specialty here over at RotoRadar. We feel like, especially with pitching, I feel like we've always done a great job at identifying bad pitching takes and kind of pivoting off of that. And, did it again last night. So it was a really good effort last night. Like you said, have had an amazing past week, had 2 top 0.1% finishes on Thursday and on Saturday, and just looking to continue that, man. We're already in the 200 club twice. It would be nice to do it a third time on this Wednesday.
Exactly. So without further ado, we do have a sizable 8-game slate. Things start a little bit earlier because of the early baseball schedule. I'm kind of glad that they put in some of these early games, as that's going to make the slate a little bit more interesting. So let's go ahead and start with what's been highlighted as a pretty competitive series so far, and starting with the Dodgers and the Pirates. Right now, the Dodgers are minus 146 money line favorites here on the road behind Tony Gonsolin. Roansy Contreras a plus 124 money line underdog at home for the Pirates. 8.5 is the total here. A little bit of weather on this slate. Thankfully, it's not really including this game. 58 degrees at PNC Park. Winds blowing out 8 to 8 miles an hour here towards center field. Let's just start with the fact that, I think that we have not yet addressed the whole Brian Reynolds contract stuff. That's been kind of the main highlight of this series. And then the Pirates actually ending up being really competitive against this Dodgers team. So where do you stand on this one with the Dodgers starting off?
Yeah, with the Dodgers starting off, I think that Roansy still has some stuff to improve on. Still hasn't necessarily been the best pitcher. The ground ball rate is somewhat concerning, but that hard contact rate has been so good this year. It's hard to find a guy that you can really like on this team. You add in the fact that Muncy's out due to personal reasons, and you have Will Smith out, and this overall offense is somewhat taken a hit so far. I kind of find it hard to target them on this slate. I think you have better options elsewhere. They don't come in with that high of an implied run total, only 4.6. It feels like there's better teams, better options to take advantage of, and I don't mind staying away from this one, at least on the Dodgers side. The Pirates make a little bit more of a conversation, though, I think.
Yeah, I think they do. Just to recap on the Dodgers stuff, I agree with you. I think this is an opportunity that's on a smaller slate. Maybe we could have taken a little bit closer of a look, but it does feel like you're gonna have to get your expensive offenses right tonight, specifically, just like yesterday. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. A lot of the teams that were popular and in good spots last night are going to be in the same relative spots today. I think that just going and using that approach is going to help you. And I don't really see the Dodgers being up towards the top. Maybe we can make a case that they're a fringe top 5, but I'm okay with not going that direction. The other side, I think these Pirates, they've been pesky, right? Like, I think that that's the biggest thing here, and it's very noticeable that the team is playing well and the morale's high, and that definitely helps the whole situation overall. We have the spot for Tony Gonsolin, who's going to be coming off of the IL, and he's basically going to be in a spot where I would feel like he's probably going to have more of a, smaller start, and this is obviously a Dave Roberts who's already concerned about that in general. So, how long do we expect him to actually go, and how long do we think that, or where in the Pirates lineup do we think we can exploit that?
Yeah, they've already said they're limiting him to 4 innings, so we're not expecting him to go deep here, similar to what Marquez did today for the Rockies. I don't think it's going to be all that much for him. And it makes for a really interesting point because we come back to this Dodger team still having one of the worst bullpens in the MLB so far this year, bottom 5 in the MLB, ranked number 4 when it comes to the weighted on base average they're giving up. Not necessarily a lot of home runs, but a lot of hits in general. So I don't mind going to some of these guys. I just kind of want to target hot hitters. I don't think you should be targeting handedness against Gonsolin because of the fact that he's not going to go all that deep. So you're going to get some different handedness in here. If you're going for just hot hitters in general, then I don't mind going Sawinski, who provides a really good option. I don't mind going to McCutchen, who's been really good. Santana has been a really good bat recently. I think there's a lot of guys in here that you could potentially look at. I think they're on the lower end of things. I don't think they're probably in cash game consideration, but I think they're solid for GPPs and definitely provide that upside today.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that. I think this game is kind of a stay away in cash in general. But yeah, I think that today you'll be able to get this Pirates team pretty low owned. McCutchen has a 7.5 fantasy point number if we want to jump to props.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. I mean, I don't really want to go out of my way too much to go this direction. And again, trying to target anything that the Dodgers do pitching wise isn't ideal. So I probably will just end up watching this one from the sideline. Although I think maybe Key Brian Hayes 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs is something interesting, but there's not much offering here.
Yeah, I actually don't mind this under on this Tony Gonsolin number. I mean, you're getting it at 4 pitcher strikeouts and saying that he's going to get a strikeout per inning. I don't think that's going to be the case against Pittsburgh. They're already not very much of a strikeout team. He could go 4 innings, but he might go less. I mean, they said Marquez was going to be limited to 75 to 80 pitches today. He went less. So, just know that when they say they're going to limit someone to a certain number, that's their max out number. If Gonsolin doesn't look good on the mound, then he's going to be yanked out of there pretty quickly. Or if they think he needs to be taken out earlier, he might get yanked out pretty quickly. So I'm kind of shocked that they're going to give you a 4 number here. It seems like a lot for a guy who's limited to 4 innings. That's a number that they'll give a lot of starters, is that 4 pitcher strikeout number. At least the lower end of starters, they'll give that number. So I don't mind taking the under there. I think it's actually pretty sharp at the end of the day. And yeah, I like the under.
Yeah, you're also at the point where you're all, I think in our minds at least, you're only taking under. The over is not in consideration here.
No.
Especially because we know that, I mean, yeah, he at some point when he's stretched out, and we can make that conversation that he's a strikeout guy, but everything else dating back to last year says that he's pretty average in terms of that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have much else for this game. This one's kind of a easy one that we're probably not going to have much of. Let's move on.
Yep, let's go ahead and move on. Next game we have Seattle and Philly. Right now, the Seattle Mariners are coming in as a -120 home or road favorite here, behind Gilbert. And then on the Phillies side, we have Taijuan Walker +102 at home. 8.5 is the total here. The weather is a little bit dicey here. I think that there's definitely something to where we could see this game either late start delay. I don't think there's much in terms of the PPD risk. So do we expect this game to start a little bit later?
Yeah, I think that most likely, at least Roth is saying no PPD risk. I don't know. With it being in Philly, with it being cross league as well, or interleague play, I could see it potentially not getting PPD, but they're going to have a lot of rain in this one. So it doesn't get me all that interested in bats. Gilbert's coming into this one off of an injury. They pushed back his start to this day because of a shoulder injury. So that should be interesting to see how he looks. Neither one of these guys are all that attackable. I mean, Taijuan Walker's been serviceable this year. Gilbert's been more than serviceable. He's been elite. If there wasn't so much rain risk here, I actually think I'd have some interest in this Logan Gilbert spot. Again, the shoulder kind of scares me, but the numbers have been really good this year. His K rate looks elite. This has been a Philly team that has been struggling altogether. I could definitely see this being a spot where Logan Gilbert could get the job done. but I won't play it in cash games. I think you're taking a big risk, and GPPs go for it. I think it's a great pivot off of some of the more chalky pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk here. Don't mind the Logan Gilbert stuff, but again, you can't really count on much of that. A lot of that could happen, and even if it doesn't, he still could not have the ceiling. Just because I think Seattle is taking a different approach this year, where maybe they're a little bit more conscious of their rotation in general. So, all right, yeah, I don't have much to say. Furthermore, though, if we do get a spot this week on the podcast, if we see Philly struggle again, and what they put up like less than 5 runs against the Rockies in the whole series against them. I've definitely taken a notice to that, and how I know that's not been on the main slate. Today it will be, so maybe people haven't been paying attention, but the Phillies are definitely struggling right now.
Yeah, they certainly are. I could see there being potential to target a pitcher against them. Maybe not in this series, maybe in the next one.
Houston Tampa Bay is going to be next on the docket. Right now, the Astros are plus 102 on the road here behind Brown. Voucher for the Rays minus 120 at home. 8 is the total here. We have this opener situation where Voucher is going to start the game, and then Josh Fleming is going to be coming in long relief here. So let's start with this Astros team going up against the likes of this bullpen situation. Feels gross on paper. Are we just knocking off one team at a time here?
100%. You know me. I don't target openers almost ever. I mean, I'll do it like once or twice a season, but for the most part, I am very much against the opener situation when it comes to bats against them. So happy to stay away from this Houston team. And when it comes to Tampa Bay, I mean, you have a pretty solid pitcher in Hunter Brown. He's shown the stuff that we expected him to show. Good xFIP so far, good K rate, limiting hard contact. All the numbers are checking off. He's not giving up much extra base hits, so like I don't think there's much upside targeting against him.
Right. I don't have much to add. I think that there's only really 1 or 2 guys that hit the ground ball low enough to where that I could see somebody doing something with it. Wander Franco, Brandon Lowe. That's kind of it, and that's not even that great of a stack. So I'm probably just off of the team.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't think there's even props here that I want to target. There's going to be good spots on this slate. I promise we'll get to them, but this is not one of them.
Yeah, well, this is kind of why I said, and we'll lead into the next game here, but it's kind of why I said I'm glad that they included some of these games, because it just gives people more of an opportunity to try to play early
Yeah.
in some cases, and that's not going to be the case today. I think the earliest team that I'd even want to remotely target here is this Mets team, so let's target them next and talk about that spot. Washington and New York. Right now, the Nationals are a plus 172 money line underdog behind Gore. Senga for the Mets minus 205 at home. 8.5 is the total. There's a little bit of similar risk here for Philly, or for the Mets game as it is Philly, but I think that while the delay is possible, I think that this game does end up playing through here. The wind's going to be blowing out in a pitcher-friendly park at 10 to 12 miles an hour, so it's kind of a mitigation factor as well. But these Mets were one of the teams we talked about being a little bit lower on last night. They actually got shut out, so that was a good call by us. Are we going to go that route today? Because I know you're a Gore backer.
Yeah, I'm a big time Gore fan, or I have been to start out the year. He's kind of been my guy that I placed the stamp on as the Josh sign of approval, and I still believe it, man. I mean, the walk rate has been the main thing that's been really tough for him. His walk rate's all the way up to 16%. It's like in the 20s against lefties. But when he has the control on, he has the swing and miss stuff. He's limiting hard contact to some extent. He has a really, really good ground ball rate at 50%, which is not something you see out of a guy who has a 29% K rate too. So it's hard for me to get behind any of these guys. So far this season, he's been very reverse splits. Like the lefties are the guys that are getting to him. Nimmo at the top of the lineup has actually been really good against lefties this year. So I feel like this is more of a one-off candidate, if anything, but like I like the Nimmo spot. I could see him getting on base multiple times and see him doing pretty well. Outside of that, I don't really have much interest in this Mets team. This is kind of just another game that I'm going to cross off. I hope people go to Sengai today and potentially take him, because I think it's a massive mistake. I think it's the level of Snell type of mistake that you had last night.
Right. I mean, I think that first of all, with Senga, we've already seen enough over the last couple starts here where I think that people were very, very happy about how he looked twice against Miami. And then you saw the spot where he just really let down here, and the walks have been a little bit concerning. The earned runs obviously have been concerning. One quality start in 4 appearances. Now he has 3 wins because of usually the offense kind of steps up in that situation. But I don't think this is a 10K pitcher. And even
No.
if with him being a massive favorite, I think that leans more towards the bats. But again, I'm a little bit lower on the Mets today than I even was yesterday, and I'm pretty low on them yesterday too.
Yeah, the big thing is that like our call at the beginning of the year of this Nationals team being a low K team has come to full fruition, right? Their total K rate, at least with the lineup that we're projecting to get today, is at 18% on the season. Their K rate against
Yep.
right-handed pitching has been at 19%, which is the second best in the MLB. So that has been a big advantage for us always. Is that people like to target this Nationals team? They automatically think of them as a bad team overall, and for the most part, they are, but they don't have a lot of K bats in this lineup. I mean, you only have one guy in the 30% range. That's Lane Thomas. Everyone else is hovering around 20% or below 20%. So
Right.
I don't see Senga having a lot of K upside. You have a 5 pitcher strikeout number right now. You add in the fact that there's like delay potential in here and everything. Like this number seems really good to take an under on. It's been under season so far on the podcast, but like I know, and I know we're kind of switching over to props a little bit, but like overall the spot is just not good enough to justify a 10K price tag. And if we do move over to props, which is where I'm really interested in things, you have Senga at 5 pitcher strikeouts, you have him at 31.5 pitcher fantasy score. They're not even guaranteed to win this game. Like I think they're like minus 150 favorites here. Let me double check that before they're minus
It's a little
210.
bit, yeah, a little
So
bit better.
definitely a little bit more
It's still,
juiced. I don't
yeah.
think Gore gets smashed though that much. I think people are underestimating just how good Gore has been this season. And so to give the Mets a 5.1 implied run total, it doesn't register with me. You add in the rain too, and there's less chance of hits going through. I don't think he has this win secured. I don't think he has the quality start secured either, because we've seen him go under 6 innings in 3 out of the 4 matchups he's taken purely because he's wasting so many pitches on these walks. If he gets a bad pitcher's ump, he will not go 6 innings. I can almost guarantee you that. So I like this under on 31.5 pitcher fantasy score. I like the under on pitcher strikeouts probably a little bit more. It's not like he's shown a lot of K ability outside of Miami and Oakland, two pretty K heavy teams. And I think that 2 unders here definitely feel solid on Senga.
Yep. I'm off the board here. I'd be really, I guess I wouldn't be shocked if he was owned today. I think that it's been kind of like yesterday. It was kind of like all over the. In my opinion, it was a little bit more all over the board in terms of where pitcher ownership could come from. It kind of feels a little bit similar to that today, but we all know that at the beginning of the year, people like to pay up and secure something there. But again, I don't think there's much to secure in the spot, or at least he hasn't shown that he has that safe side to him. So you add in even if a game doesn't PPD, there's still a chance, or delay, I should say, there's still a chance that they're cautious with him too because of how many injuries they've experienced.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I see a lot of routes to the under. I see very little routes to the over. So don't mind hitting both of those numbers and feel pretty solid about that. But for DFS, there's really not much here. I mean, like that Mets team is okay, but like I believe in Gore, so I only like the one off of Nimmo, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm again, I was probably more intrigued yesterday. At least I could see pathways to where if they went lefty heavy, that Josiah Gray could struggle, but he was spot on last night, so I'm glad
No,
I stayed away.
for sure. We can move on to this next spot though, because this is the enticing spot. Finally, we can talk
Yes.
about some plays that we like.
The next 4 games will have plays in it. Maybe not
Yep.
so much in Chicago, but the next 3 or 4 games are going to have a lot of stuff in here. So Miami and Atlanta is next right now. The Marlins are plus 128 on the road behind Sandy Alcantara. And then you have the Braves, who are a minus 152 money line home favorite behind Elder. 8 is the total here. You got 2 of the top pitchers on the slate. And I think that, we should at least start the conversation with very different approaches between FanDuel and DraftKings today, where Bryce Elder is at 10,900 and a little bit more discounted on DraftKings, while Sandy is 9,800 on FanDuel, gets the rough $9,900 on DraftKings. A little bit over, I think that FanDuel is kind of overinflating these Braves plays, and for good reason. But let's talk about the Sandy spot first against this Braves team.
Yeah, the Sandy spot's interesting because he's showing a lot of paths to positive regression here. You know, the XFIP is okay at 4.25. It's not exactly what you want to see, but the swinging strike rate was the first thing that popped out to me. It's at 14% so far this year.
Hmm.
It just shows that his K rate should be hovering around the mid 20s, and it's not yet. So there's a lot of K heavy batters in this Atlanta lineup. Maybe he's able to get a few strikeouts. I like attacking some of these guys that are lower K rate guys, you know, the Acuñas of the world, even getting some guys that are righties because he hasn't been striking out righties nearly as much as lefties. So
Yep.
Acuna, Riley, Sean Murphy's having like really close to an MVP season at this point. The numbers have been
Amazing what happens
in.
when people leave Oakland.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm really interested in this Atlanta offense. I don't think they're full stack capable. I think a lot of the industry might feel that way, but I'm fine with
Yeah.
going with the mini stack here and feeling solid about an Acuna Murphy mini stack. I think is the way to go.
Yep. I mean, Acuna and Riley were a little bit popular last night. I liked the spot for the Braves and wanted to jump back on after a couple bad days from Acuna, but I think I'd be willing to go back to it today. You know, as soon as he gets on, I don't even know if I want to target like total bases anymore for Acuna, unless the spot's really, really good. But we've just seen the fantasy number be pretty nails so far this year, and that's because he's getting on base and then stealing. So, and then
Mhm.
somebody will knock him in later. But I definitely could go back to that today. As far as DFS goes, I think this is a bad time to stack the Braves. I could see again mini stacks of the top, 1, 3, 4, and that's kind of it.
I will just tell you, man, Marcelo Zuna is going to home run and going to
He
go on
has,
a
yeah.
ballistic run very soon.
Hmm.
The amount of unluckiness he's been encountering is insane. Now, obviously, the K stuff is just bad, like that, but that's what you expect with Marcelo Zuna.
He's a boomer bust guy.
Exactly, but the BABIP is at 0.053, which is insanely low. His expected WOBA is all the way up in like the 500s right now. So like he's hitting well. He's just not getting the hits that he needs to. I don't mind going with the little reverse stat or little Walmart 135, getting Ozuna in the 8 hole, then Acuna, then maybe a Riley or a Sean Murphy to finish that out. Feels like a solid way to go with a 3-man stack. And you're getting Ozuna at really good price tags right now, which is why I want to start looking at this spot and finding some advantageous spots to take him. The fact that you're getting him at 2,500 feels like a discount. Just to get a piece of this offense, to get him at 2,500 is a discount. So I like
Yep.
that Marcelo Ozuna spot, man. It's going to come through sooner or later. You're going to see him go ballistic one of these days. The big thing is that Alcantara throws a sinker the majority of the time against righties, and he does pretty well against that sinker. So
Hmm.
this should be a good spot for him. I'm telling you, I'm gonna nail this spot pretty soon. I can already tell it, and this definitely might be it.
Yeah, well, I think the BVP also aligns today. He was going to potentially make my 6-man list. I left him off just because it's always a little bit concerning early in the day to whether or not some of these guys make the lineup. So I do think that he'll be in there today, though. They always like to play him against Miami just because of the old history there. But he is 7 for 16 lifetime against Alcantara, which normally guys aren't that good against him. Not no home runs, but there's a couple extra base hits there too.
Yeah, for sure. I think the stuff is really solid there. I like the Acuna spot. If we want to just switch over to props real quick, I know you were kind of talking about them, but I like this Acuna number at 8.5. I think you can just kind of continue to auto put it in until it stops working,
Yeah,
honestly, because it's
he
worked
shouldn't
more
be
than.
that on Prize Picks. It just shouldn't be that low.
No, it
So.
shouldn't be. And I like the Elder spot too. I mean, you're getting him at a 5 strikeout number here. I think that's really solid considering this Miami team is in the bottom 10 of striking out against right-handed pitching so far this year. So we're just going to keep auto putting in pitchers against Miami because it's worked out like a charm so far this season. And I see no
Hmm.
reason why not to do it with Elder in DFS and in and on Prize Picks. The big thing is I probably wouldn't take this pitcher fantasy score number. I know they kind of limit him when it comes to his outings. He's not necessarily a guy who can go super deep. He used to be a relief arm, so he's not necessarily geared up fully for this starter role yet. I think I would lean towards the strikeouts over the fantasy score number, if anything.
Yeah, I'll go with the strikeout number 2. I mean, if Charlie Morton was able to get 9 after failing to hit 6 all year, this is the spot for him. And I think the only player that I wouldn't take against the Marlins is surprisingly Max Scherzer. It just appears that he's the
Yeah.
only one that won't be able to do that. But yeah, I think let's just touch on the conversation of Elder really quick for DFS in accordance to this. I mean, I mentioned he's 10,900 on FanDuel. Is that something that you're willing to do with all of the expensive offenses here later?
I think so. We're going to talk about this Cubs game too. I think there's a little bit of potential to potentially go Waka and go really, really cheap today. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but with him being at 6,700, him not having a lot of success, and we'll kind of dive into it once we get there. But the Waka spot does not seem all that bad, and I could definitely see going on the cheaper side to afford all the bats that you want, because we're gonna talk about Angels too, who are in a really good spot, and we're gonna talk about a lot of pay up. St. Louis as well, like you mentioned earlier on in the show. So
Yeah.
I like the Elder spot. Don't get me wrong. I just don't see myself potentially paying such a high price tag for him, especially when we're not seeing any ability to go like super deep. Like we're not seeing the ability to go 7 innings or 8 innings quite yet from him.
I'm still on the play for DraftKings. I think 9,400 is definitely still solid. However, like 11K, the reason that I played Morton yesterday was because I felt that he could get a really strong 40. Thankfully, he ended up hitting his ceiling there, but I felt really good with the Diamondback stack, which ended up coming in. At least Corbin Carroll did, and that's what we're gonna have to rely on today. Today, it's gonna be kind of a weird conversation because I'm kind of leaning towards you, leaning towards your mindset as well, where maybe it's the day that, yesterday everybody paid down for pitcher, they got burned. Maybe they'll change their mindset today and go up and pay for a guy like Senga. And then we're kind of like flip-flopped yesterday to today, and I don't think that paying up for pitcher is the best option.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
Okay. Outside of the Acuna stuff, I really don't have much to mention. I mean, if you ever have a chance to get any good Sean Murphy props, I would take them. Usually you can find Sean Murphy on sleeper picks and you can be able to kind of get whatever you want there, but they definitely are limiting some of the Braves, at least as of right now, but they'll always give you that Acuna 8.5 number.
Yeah, and we'll continue hammering it, man. No reason not to.
Yep. I mean, every time, every now and then he's gonna miss it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he
like
went
he
0
did for
4
us on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
painful, man. That was such a beautiful spot too, and to
Mhm.
see him, that whole offense erupted, and except for him, essentially.
He's just the kind of guy that, yeah, he's going to struggle at times at the plate, but he's going to find a way to get on. And it's usually more than, very, very less than 2 days in a row that he doesn't hit that fantasy number. So maybe that's something we end up tracking here moving forward. But I would say it's going pretty well right now for him. So let's go ahead and move on. I think we can summarize this by saying even Atlanta, it doesn't crack the top 5 yet.
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
4.
maybe because of the limited size of the slate, I think they are top 5. I would say towards the bottom end, like 4, 5, maybe 3. But I think you're probably going to come out with Angels being a little bit better, Oakland being a little bit better, and even St. Louis potentially having some options there.
Yep. Okay. Let's go ahead and keep moving forward here. Right before we do that, I just wanted to mention, at least throwing it out there since we're on the topic already, we didn't talk about Braves, or sorry, not Braves. We didn't talk about Rays much. We kind of said that we really liked what Brown brought to the table and kind of didn't see the upside there. It's also a team that is in the, people's eyes of the top 5 stack today. And I don't think that that's anywhere close to where we want to be.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right. San Diego, Chicago is an interesting one. Padres minus 108. It's pretty much dead even here behind Waka and Smiley for the Cubs. 8 is the total. You're going to get really cold temperatures tonight. 40 degrees, wind is blowing in. It's a very similar spot to yesterday. And again, I understand on one hand why people went Snell in the fact that the game environment itself wasn't the best. And I think the final score was 2-0 or something along those lines. So it is what it is there, but Snell had failed to show that he could go more than 5 innings, and then they stacked a bunch of righties against him today. This might be a little bit different, where I think that the Cubs don't set up as well against right-handed pitching. So I'll give you the Waka spiel there.
Yeah, I think this is a good spot. Waka has shown okay stuff this season. I know he's kind of been up and down. He definitely got hit pretty hard against Milwaukee and Arizona. The big difference is like the ability to get good
Lefties.
lefties into the lineup. Exactly, good lefties. Milwaukee has a bunch of them. Arizona has a bunch of them. Chicago has some. You have Hap, but after Hap, you don't have much. You have Rios and Hosmer and Barnhart at the bottom of the lineup. But the fact that he's not going up against a lot of lefties, I just expect this one to be very similar to last night. Very low scoring. I think last night it ended 6-0 actually, and so
Oh yeah, I think Nico Herner ended up hitting late.
yeah, exactly. I just see Waka being able to do well here. And even the other side, I mean, the Drew Smiley side is not bad. This Padres team hasn't been good against lefties. They've been bottom 10 in the MLB. Those numbers are going to change a little bit as Tatis gets geared up, but he's not there yet, in my opinion. I think the stuff has looked good. It hasn't looked great. And they just don't, they have some pretty high K numbers against lefties too. So I could see Smiley even getting there as well. Both of these pitchers seem like pretty good options with it being cold, with the wind blowing in Wrigley. We know it becomes more of a pitcher park. A lot of things getting ticked off for boxes for both of these guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the price tags are good too when you're
Yeah.
looking at DFS stuff. So let's not forget that Drew Smiley was one batter away from getting a complete game no hitter against the
Yeah.
Dodgers and ended up getting tackled by his catcher to ruin the outing. So
Yeah.
um, you kind of have to just because we're going to target it against Drew Smiley a lot this summer. So it's kind of just a play on the weather and a play against the team that just hasn't geared up all the way in the Padres.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Smiley's outing so far, right? He had that bad start at the beginning of the year, but one, it's your first start of the season. Two, it's in the Great American Small Park against a
Yeah.
Cincinnati team that is full of righties. It makes sense that you struggle a little bit. You look since then, a good start against the Mariners, which is impressive. Mariners can hit lefties pretty well. And then two pretty good starts against the Dodgers, one which, flirting with a no-hitter. So, like, I think Smiley's starting to get geared up here, and if that's the case, I have a lot of interest against a Padres team that just doesn't seem like they have it all together on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they don't. And I think that they might struggle in the colder weather too, just in general. Um, Smiley comes in at 7,300 on DraftKings, which is a pretty impressive tag to put
Love
him
the
at.
SB2 option there. Love
Yeah,
it.
it's really nice. And Walker's not too bad either. Kind of just have to pick which side you think wins the game, because that unfortunately is what you're faced with today. And we don't really have that. Like I said, the game is even essentially at minus 108. So yeah, I think that we can feel pretty comfortable with the under here, and I think that's one of these guys should be in your lineups today.
Yeah, I would lean towards the Smiley route if you can, but both of them are solid. Let's take a look at Prize Picks, see if there's anything there. I want to see if Smiley, just 4.5 pitcher strikeouts on the board. I guess that's okay. I don't love it. No, not many other props though to love there. And then let's see what Waka's at, because that's what 15.5 pitching outs, 4 pitcher strikeouts, I think that 2.5 earned runs number goes under, man. I don't think he gives up a lot of damage here against this Cubs team. There's just not enough lefties to prove that he's going to really struggle.
I'd have to look at the actual model itself, but this does feel like a nerfy type of situation
Ooh,
for these
yeah.
pitchers.
I like that. I like
Um,
that a lot.
Obviously, you run a lot of risk always with all that. It's a very sweaty 6 outs anytime you do it, no matter what. But this one definitely gears towards that because a guy like Tatis or Machado could get a hold of one early. Ian Happ has some good BVP in this spot, but that doesn't mean that they're going to hit home runs that could be pulled in.
Yeah. I want to see first inning data here. Both of these teams, Cubs are in the bottom 10 in terms of their first inning stuff, and Padres are. Where is this Padres team? I can't find them. Hold on. Looking. Why? Okay, I'm going to have to. SDP. Oh, they're in the top 10 in terms of their first inning stuff. But still, I think with Chicago being in the bottom 10, yeah, you really need Waka to do well. And then I feel like Smiley's set up to do pretty well against the top of this order.
Agreed. Okay. In terms of bats, not much to say about this game. I know
No.
we're really just saying fade left and right here, but that's kind of what today's slate is.
We're going to be honest with you guys about what's good and what's not. And a lot of these spots aren't good, which gives us an advantage. When we can narrow down our spots to the spots that we really like, that's a big plus in my eyes, at least. Like, I'd rather have spots that I really like and a lot of spots that I don't like than having a whole bunch of spots that I do like, because that just adds to the variance of the slate.
Yep. I liked 4 teams last night, and that's kind of what we stood by. And I think we could even say we like less than 4 teams tonight. Like, I
Yeah.
think we've only been really gung ho on one team so far,
Hmm.
maybe. And
Not
that's
even really
Atlanta.
gung ho
Even
on
then, we
them.
weren't even really that
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So, yep. This is going to be a situation where I think we full stack a team in the next game here. And I think you guys can figure out who that is. So let's go ahead and move on and talk about it. Oakland and LA right now are coming in with Oakland being a plus 194 money line underdog here behind Medina. Sandoval for the Angels minus 235 at home. 9.5 is the total here. Not only is it one of the better spots on paper for these implied totals, you also get good weather on the West Coast at Angel Stadium. 72 degrees, winds blowing out 68 miles an hour with gusts up to 10, straight out to center field. So this is going to be a situation where they've been chalk for the majority of the week just because of matchup and everything else associated. And we're going to get the spot for the Angels, who we were rivaling against on whatever day that was, either Monday or Saturday, and with the Oakland matchup there in that game. And I think that this game's going to be a game that's, I mean, the Angels have just looked like the every single game goes up into the 15 to 20 run mark. I could see this one being another one of those that does that. So it does look like we're going to have a situation where we'll full stack in the Angels today. And that's kind of coming into the conversation of why we like those cheap pitchers in the previous game a little bit more to get all those bats up there. So are we on the same wavelength there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this Angel stack is one of the best stacks on the slate. The Medina stuff, just to give you an idea of who he is, hasn't seen major league play yet, so it's going to be his first start today. Was in AAA this so far this season. Has had 3 starts, only gone 9 innings. The stuff has not looked good. His ERA looks okay, sub 4, but his xFIP is all the way up at 5.72. He's a big walk guy. I mean, he's nearly walking like a guy an inning at this point. So his control is all over the place. He actually has some plus stuff. Like the fastball's really good, the curveball's really good for him. The problem is the command is terrible right now, and I don't see it getting better against an Angels team that's pretty solid against this handedness. So I like this spot. I think it's really solid. I kind of want to load up here if I can. It starts out with Trout, but I think Otani's a good option. I think Renfro's a good option. I think some guys at the bottom of this lineup could really do some damage here. I like this Angels stack quite a bit.
Yep, I do. Only problem is that you're only able to roster 4 on FanDuel and 5 on DraftKings. That's not a bad problem to have, but you're going to have to pick and choose spots here. We've seen Brandon Drury become a guy who's been very popular this week because of his price tag. I know that he hit 2 home runs in a night the other day as well. You could see Luis Rengifo get a roster spot in the middle of this lineup. You could see Zach Neto we'll probably get in a low spot, but the price tag's good enough to where we feel pretty good about that as well. And I think that you can take your pick here. It's just choosing the right 4 Angels.
Yeah, exactly. With how they're currently hitting, I could really see the fact that they flop Rendon and Drury in the lineup, moving Rendon down to 7, moving Drury up to 4. I think it's only a matter of time before that happens. So if we do get that bump today, Drury's in an amazing spot price-wise. Regardless, I think the spot is really good. He seems like he's starting to get hot.
Right. Agreed there. No other qualms on the Angels side of things. Where we should talk about this is how much interest do we actually want in the Oakland Athletics? And I think that a lot of people will just dismiss this and say no. And I know we did that for the majority of the games early on, but this is actually a spot where I think that I would be very curious at the end of the year to see how Oakland sets up as how many times do they actually pay off in spots like this for the industry and specifically us, because we've been targeting Oakland a couple times this year already, and I think today's going to be another one of those times.
I want to give you a little guessing game here. Can you tell me where this Oakland team is compared to the rest of the league in terms of their ranking of their weighted runs created above average against lefties?
Against lefties, okay, because I know righties is not the same
Not
conversation.
good. No, it's not the same.
Um,
But against lefties
I would
purely.
say you want me to just say a number?
Yeah,
Um,
where they rank 1 out of 30.
I will say 6.
They rank number 5 right now, which is crazy that you guessed that high, but you knew where I was going with this. This
Yeah.
team is really good against left-handed pitching. I am fully buying into the fact that this team is just full of lefty sluggers, and it makes sense with the acquisitions they made, right? Aguilar purely has been a lefty crusher for his whole career. Ruiz at the top of this lineup has been pretty good contact hitter against lefties. Rooker has been smashing lefties all season long. And at the
Mhm.
end of the day, the main fact is that Sandoval doesn't have the stuff that he's had last year. We already seen him struggle against this Oakland team. That was the first start of the year for him. He was not able to get the strikeouts. He really struggled throughout that start, was only able to go 5 innings. And we've seen him look worse over the past few. Had a really bad start against the Yankees. I think this is another spot where I'm going to be in on this Oakland team. I like them against lefties. I'm just going to continue hammering in the spot of taking them against lefties. So, I like Rooker. I like Aguilar. I like Diaz a little bit further down in the lineup. I don't mind going to Kevon Smith or Perez, Esteury Ruiz at the top of the lineup. Like I could very well see this being a situation where how your stacks end up lining up is like I'm trying to think of how much you're factoring in St. Louis here, but some combination of a 3-3-2, that 3 stack being undetermined between Atlanta and between St. Louis, but your 3 being Angels and your mini stack being this Oakland team, because they come in at pretty cheap price tags. It's not like you're paying a lot. Rooker's the highest priced guy on FanDuel. He's only at 3,300, so it's not difficult to pay up or to pay these to get these guys in your lineup today, and they're all hitting lefties really solid. So I really like this spot against Sandoval. Like I mentioned, he does not have the stuff yet, in my opinion. You're looking for guys who can elevate the ball, and Aguilar does a great job of it. Rooker does a great job of it. I think those are the two that I would really try to focus on if I can.
Yep, I think that's so. I don't have anything to argue about that. I think Rooker and Aguilar are 2 of the better bats on this team. Ruiz, if you wanted to get the extra salary savings, but you might not need to with some of the cheap Angels. I think what I wanted to say here to make a full round point is that we did it last night where we basically stacked a game and kind of just held on tight with that one. I think today is kind of similar with that. I think we've done that a couple times with this Angels team this year, specifically over the weekend when we had those back-to-back home run performances twice for the same guys we're talking about today, and Rooker and Aguilar. So it's not something we suggest doing every day, but I think it is something today specifically and yesterday specifically where if you found a game that you really like, you just kind of load up on that one. But again, I think it's a day-by-day scenario. Not something we would suggest every single day.
Yeah, I will also say that this Angels team, their bullpen has been a disaster class. I
Yeah,
mean,
because they're giving up 12 runs a game.
yeah, but they're consistently, like, the starting pitching is never all that bad, and then you get to this bullpen and they completely give everything up. I mean, they have looked awful to start out the year, so it's even a better spot that after Sandoval they get some bad bullpen arms potentially.
Mm-hmm. All right. I would be interested in any hits, runs, RBIs for these Athletics, and obviously we can take a look at any Angels stuff. I think that's where the majority of our 2-pick stuff will be. Not much from what I'm seeing, at least on Prize Picks.
I know I've been Mr. Under today on pitcher numbers, but I refuse to believe that Sandoval's going to get 35 pitcher fantasy score. I think they're purely gearing him up here because it's against Oakland. They see this bad Oakland Athletics team and they think he'll have a good outing. But we saw it earlier in the year. He wasn't able to get past 6 because he was kind of throwing away a lot of pitches. The strikeout stuff wasn't there. And for the most part, it hasn't been there all that much this season. So I could see Sandoval going under this 35 pitcher fantasy score number and even under the pitcher strikeout number. In terms of hitting props, I like Trout over 8.5 fantasy score. I like don't mind Rendon and Renfroe hits, runs, RBIs numbers on their overs, even Gio Urshela potentially. You got to remember that these guys that are coming up and making their first major league start, mainly, especially right-handed pitchers, aren't used to the speed that these guys have on the base pads because they just don't have that in AAA. So like the steal numbers are elevated a ton when you have a guy like Medina coming in for his first major league start.
Yeah, definitely agree there. And I think that's kind of where I want to end that conversation and move on. There's really not much to look at here from the prop side of things, although I will say 92.5 pitch count does feel like an under as well for Sandoval.
What is going on with the athletics board? Why do we have no props
It's
here?
not. Yeah, it's
What is
not.
going on?
On underdog, it's a lot of just hits, and the only guy that has a fancy number is Shane Langeliers. So
Why?
again, maybe more of a situation where if you're interested and can play on sleeper picks, you can guarantee that everybody that's starting has something.
Yeah, I would definitely say go over there and potentially get some stuff for this athletics team, because that was the same thing with this team on, what was it, Saturday? I think it was Saturday when I
It had
targeted
to have been
Oakland.
Saturday.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was the Rooker
or
Aguilar
Friday
day.
or Saturday.
Rooker didn't have a number up there. Aguilar didn't have a number up there. And that's just, you not getting those spots is something that you can capitalize on for sleeper, where you can get those numbers.
All right, let's go ahead and focus on the last game on the board here. We have the Cardinals taking on the Giants right now. Steven Matz is a -104 moneyline underdog here on the road. Anthony DeSclafani, the Giants -112 at home. 8.5 is the total here. Not much to say in terms of the weather. Should be a nice evening for baseball there. Wind's going to be mitigated by the park factors, so no need to worry there. I do think this game has pretty tremendous upside compared to what the total is giving right now. And I wouldn't be shocked to see this game close with a closing line value of 9. Would not be shocked at all if we saw that. So as far as the Cardinals go, I think that we've rostered DeSclafani once this year. That is easily not going to be a thing today. I think that there are guys that have his number, and I think both teams have some good spots. But in terms of playing these Cardinals hitters, I know that a lot of the stuff here looks pretty scary in terms of like trying to find something to target here, but I want to start the conversation now with Paul Goldschmidt and how he is and again, not to lead the conversation with BVP, but he is the best bar none today. There's not very many options. This one sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I worry a little bit. DeSclafani has been a changed pitcher since coming to this Giants team. He has never been a ground ball guy, but he's definitely developed into that this season. 56% so far this year is really good. Some definitely cakewalk matchups in there. He's faced off against Kansas City, Detroit, the White Sox, but I could definitely see the Goldschmidt number getting there for you if you wanted to go that route. I kind of would rather have a lefty, so like maybe a Nolan Gorman or a Nootbaar if they end up high in the lineup. I don't know. I have a lot of trouble getting really excited about this St. Louis stack. I think they're okay. I think you have some good spots BVP wise, but I think in terms of just DeSclafani being a good pitcher this year, it's hard for me to reason that any of these guys jump off the board for me.
Yeah, it would be a one-off scenario. Wouldn't be a 2-pick. Don't even think I'd throw it in a 3-pick on underdog or anything like that. It would be purely a 5 or 6 flex, depending on where you wanted to go in terms of props. DFS, I'm again probably just limiting this to one player, or maybe a mini stack at most. Doesn't feel like it needs to be something that you do, but I do want to talk about the other side in the Giants because I think there's something. Again, this game is very tricky, but I do think I lean towards there being some explosive spots here. It might be on the Giants side.
Yeah, let's talk about this Giants team because Matt's he's been okay this year. He hasn't been great this year. I think there certainly are some spots where this San Francisco team has done a really good job of hitting lefties pretty well because they are so righty heavy. Slater is a good option. You're taking a little bit of risk because if they bring in a lefty, they're going to end up pinch hitting him. They always do with Slater.
Yep.
So that's something to watch out for. But don't mind going Mitch Haniger, who has been really awesome since coming into this lineup. I know it's a very limited sample size so far, only 3 at-bats, but all at-bats have had 100% hard contact rate. So he's been smashing lefties to start out the year. He is a lefty smasher at the end of the day. So don't mind going the Haniger route if I'm going to go somewhere. They end up going leadoff with Taro Estrada. I wouldn't mind going there either. He has some really good hard contact numbers. But that's about it. I don't think you need to go overweight here on this Giants team. I think at the end of the day, they're probably closer to a GPP stack than a cash game stack, but a good GPP stack at that.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the first thing I was going to mention, Slater definitely. I mean, in GPPs, I think you're going to need him. I could see people playing Slater in cash, and that always worries me every time because of the pinch hit risk. But again, it could be there for you. I do want to. You brought up the Tyro Estrada stuff. he's been one of the team's just best hitters overall. So I think that compared to the fact that we're gonna get some guys running on Mats tonight, I think Tyro Estrada sets up really well in terms of that. And I also think maybe rostering a guy like JD Davis to go along with all that, Wilmer Flores, depending on his roster or lineup spot. There are guys that can definitely really take Mats and get him out of this game quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I know you didn't see me, but I just fist pumped because Joey Weimer is him. Just hit a home run for our early lineup. So
Very
that's
nice.
very
I'm not paying
nice.
attention.
Yeah, very nice because that's going to push us into the cash and most likely get us over the edge. So very, very happy
Very nice.
about that. But yeah, just to get back on this game, I think Giants are GPP. I think Cardinals are getting close to a GPP stack in my eyes. I really think you have a very clearly defined 1, 2, 3 in terms of top stacks today. It's Atlanta, it's this Angels team, and it's Oakland, which is weird to say Oakland, but I think that's where I hold them so far.
Yep, I definitely agree with the Oakland stuff as a mini stack because that's what you're going to be looking for tonight. And the cheap price tags definitely help out with the rest of the build. Where people maybe roster Dodgers, Rays, Mets, who else? Maybe they go heavy on Atlanta. I just think that there are going to be a lot of mistakes made today. Everybody's in the Angels, so we're not going to be different there. But it's getting those other spots where I think it's going to matter the most today. And again, a very curious day for starting pitching. We'll see if we're on the right side of it today. The last thing I want to mention here quickly, Tyro Estrada has a 6.5 hitter fantasy score number on Prize Picks. If he gets on and steals, it's over in the first inning. So
yeah, let's look at Prize Pick stuff really quickly for this last game before we get out of here because I just want to see if any other Giants have any other numbers here. You mentioned Taro, Haniger has 6. Haniger has a hits, runs, RBIs number. I really like that. Probably more of a 5-pick number than anything else, but still a good number to go with. And man, if you have the balls to do it, Slater at 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. You need him to cover it in like the first 3 at bats, but if he does it, you're really happy, and you might get screwed over a little bit by a pinch hit risk.
Yep, I like the Tyro number a lot. Haniger, I can get on board with too. I think for him, for a guy like him, I think the Giants in general. I won't go on a long tear. We don't have time for that today, but I think the Giants in general just are a team that gets overlooked a lot because they play a lot of West Coast games. And they're not the Angels or the Astros or the Dodgers, etc. So trying to get to a guy like Haniger early may be a benefit too.
Yeah, I would agree. I like the Haniger.
People don't recognize Haniger being on the Giants either.
Yeah, for sure. It's not fully there yet for everyone. So yeah, I think there's some good stuff towards the end of this slate. The beginning of the slate's kind of you can kind of just throw it away, and it almost ends up being a 4-game slate instead of like an 8-game slate that we have, because I think there's a lot of cross-offs throughout the rest of the slate. In terms of DFS, in terms of Prize Picks, you have a few unders that I mentioned that I think you can hit that I feel pretty good about, but that is about it there. I think we're all done here, Jared. Do you have any final thoughts? If not, we can get out of here, man.
Just final thoughts quickly. 6:35 Eastern lock time on both DFS sites. And today is going to be a day where I think a lot of people make a lot of bad prop decisions, a lot of bad construction decisions on DFS, just like yesterday. And I think we're going to be on the right side of it once again today. So if you guys are, again, if you're interested in, if you haven't been watching us before, or if you're tuning in here, we're actually going to be starting to do more things on video now that I'm back from vacation and now that things are starting to smooth out with the MLB season in general. So make sure to hit the like and the follow, and just continue to watch us at 3 p.m. Eastern time every single Monday through Friday.
Yes, sir. Exactly. All right, let's get out of here. I think we're all done. Any other final thoughts, Jared, or not? Or if not, we can get out of here.
Nope, we're all good.
Sweet. Let's get out of here. Thank you all for listening. As always, my name is Joshua Riemer. Good night and good skill.